Hi, I'm Claire, and these are a few of my comfort reads. The wonderful Chelsea over at The Reading Outlaw made a video on this subject in the wake of the US election results, and she asked us all to share our own comfort reads as well. These are obviously very personal to me, but I'm hoping that some of the things I find so comforting about those books can translate for you too. First, let's get the obvious one out of the way and talk about Harry Potter for a moment. This world is so special, so precious to a lot of us, to me, even at a time when I'm having a lot of mixed feelings about how the franchise is developing. The original books can still cheer me up. For me, it's all about Prisoner of Azkaban. This one is my favorite, especially the few chapters in the Shrieking Shack at the end when we get the history of the Marauders. But if you prefer to focus on the main trio, then I would suggest the absolutely gorgeous and very heavy illustrated editions of Philosopher's Stone and Chamber of Secrets. They're just extremely beautiful, and I really enjoy going through the illustrations. I find it extremely soothing. Next is a firm favorite from childhood, and that is George's Marvelous Medicine by Roald Dahl. When I was a little girl, my mother used to have a tape of this book in her car, and we would play it very, very often. All I can say is I'm thankful my mother didn't mind hearing this book over and over again. Obviously, as you would expect with a Roald Dahl book, it's hilarious, but there's also something of the childlike glee of mixing the potion ingredients and making magic with everyday items from the house that just never ever fails to grab me. And if you notice that in the second part of the story we have a bit more of a critique of adults and greed when George's dad wants him to recreate the potion en masse so that he can sell some giant chickens, well, that's not really a bad thing in times such as these, is it? Next is Dragon Singer by Anne McCaffrey, and this is a book that I've loved since I was a teenager. I talk a lot about the Dragon Riders of Pern on this channel, and I don't shy away from the fact that the series has aged very badly overall and has a lot of issues. Now, Dragon Singer for me is the one book that hasn't been savaged by the suck fairy. I can go back and reread it. I do that about every year or so, and it always brings me joy. It is technically the second book in a trilogy, but you can totally read it as a standalone. It is a very self-contained story. This is basically a boarding school coming-of-age story that takes place over the course of a week and has a pretty uplifting ending. It also features mini dragons that sit on the protagonist's shoulder and are adorable. I need to give a content warning for references to past physical abuse that is not featured in the story itself. There are also some disabled characters, and although they are portrayed positively, there is definitely some ableist language because this was written in the 1970s. Oh, Dragon Riders of Pern, my problematic fave. For an extra quick, comforting read, I give you Nimona by Noel Stevenson. First, because it is adorable. I find the art style delightful and the writing very funny. But the biggest thing for me is that this is a story about what the accepted prevailing mainstream narrative is and who shapes it and what they do with it and whether that is acceptable or not. It's a story that says that the people in charge can be immoral and unethical and brand you a villain, and that in spite of the power imbalances, the abuses, and the corruption, these groups can be defeated. If you look at it that way, it is a deeply subversive text, and that makes me very happy. Finally, there is Letters from Father Christmas by J.R.R. Tolkien. I don't have a copy of this book here, but it is an old favorite of my mother's. It is a gorgeous book collecting letters that J.R.R. Tolkien wrote for his children. For years, they would write letters to the North Pole, and Tolkien would write replies in character as Father Christmas, or one of Father Christmas's polar bears. They have these continuing conversations over years and years, and there are hand-drawn illustrations by Tolkien himself. But the most touching aspect for me is that there are clearly some points in this book where Tolkien is writing specifically to bring comfort to his children who are worried about the state of the world because This book was written between 1920 and 1942. I just think it's an absolutely lovely and warming read, especially for this time of year. So that's it. These were a few of my personal comfort books. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and if you have some favorite books that comfort you when everything goes to pieces, please share them in the comments below, because I have a feeling that we're going to need those. If you'd like to see more from me, you can check the sidebar right here for more videos, and if you haven't yet, please hit that subscribe button for more videos from me every week. I've been Claire, thanks so much for watching, and see you soon. Philosopher's Stone, and no, that didn't work.